Hey, what's up? This is Ivan with the Dream Job CEO YouTube channel, bringing you the best ideas on how to actually find your dream job. And in today's video, what I want to talk about is how to handle a difficult interview question that perhaps you did not prepare for, and you also don't want to sound ordinary and provide the same response as other candidates. Now, before I dive right in, consider subscribing below and enabling the notifications. That way you'll know exactly when I post the new content and I talk about things like resume, interviewing, networking, and a lot of other useful tips that will be helpful to find your next dream job. So let's dive right into today's topic, the difficult interview question. You know, we've all gotten that question when you think everything is going well, and then all of a sudden, boom, somebody asks you about a particular situation or a hypothetical question. And to talk about how to respond to a question like that, let me give you a story from my experience interviewing, and then talk about some of the mistakes that I've done in the past, and also what I've learned from them and how I took that learning and applied it in other interviews that helped me to be successful in responding to those questions. So about 5 to 7 years ago, probably a little bit longer, I was in an interview with a tech company that I really wanted to get into, and it's a big name company, and I had a couple of phone interviews. I had an interview with a recruiter, with a hiring manager, with some other people from the team, and finally I was invited to go on site, and I was super excited. It was honestly something that I really was looking forward to, and it was basically at that time my dream job. So I get on site, and I have multiple interviews, and all of them just go really well. I'm prepared really well to all of the questions. I'm super excited. I share the energy with the interviewers, and I get to my last interview, and the last interview also starts well. I very similar questions, stuff that I heard before, I prepared for, and then all of a sudden I get asked this question that it caught me off guard. And in that question, I kind of thought about it, and I didn't really want to respond to it outside, out of the box, right? I kind of came to a response, and it's later analysis kind of showed me that it was a response that everybody would kind of provide to the interviewer. And it turns out when the interviewer, I thought about it later, it turns out that when the interviewer asks a question like that, they're not really looking for the right answer, but instead they're looking for something that would show them that you want to think critically, think outside of the box, and more importantly, be creative. And so I responded to that question, and the question was something like, if you had any sort of power, any sort of way to analyze something, any data point, what would it be? And I came up with something really average, and it was just, a complete letdown, and I could really feel the energy go down in the room. And, later I found out that I didn't get the job, and the interview that I didn't do well on, which is something I was told by the recruiter, was the interview, that last interview that I had. So I took that learning, and I kind of decided that anytime in the future I'm going to be asked a similar question, I am going to be bold, and I'm going to respond with something that is creative and that I know nobody has responded the same way in the past. And in other words, I was willing to take risks. So then fast forward, I would say a couple of years, and I had another interview at a tech company, and everything was going well as well. Very similar story. And then I get to an interview. It wasn't my last interview, but it was an interview with the hiring manager, actually. And the hiring manager, and the question was something like this: if you had a way to replace a cashier at a grocery store or a convenience store with a robot, how would you measure whether people going through that robot are actually satisfied with their experience? And I basically said, here's the question, here we go again. Here's a question where everybody is probably going to say, I'm gonna do a survey or whatever else. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna be bold and just say that I'm going to measure their facial expression, their face, whether they're smiling or are they sad, and that's gonna be the indicator of whether their experience was a good one. And boom, you know, I can just immediately see that that was a response that was unexpected, but also gave me that edge that over other candidates that I was looking for, because it was just so out of the box, and you know, it was just a human response. Because here's the thing, if you ask me that question, chances are that everybody else is going to respond the same way. So with that, those are the two stories that I have had in the past. And by the way, the second story was actually a success. I got the job. But I wanted to share this with you, and you know, the two key takeaways that I would say are, number one, be bold and don't be afraid to take risks, to respond to questions that appear like they just don't have the right answer, the tough interview questions that are hypothetical. And number two, practice those questions outside of the interview. So for example, if you do some research on some tough interview questions and you see, you know, the generic responses, chances are that everybody else is reading them and everybody else is going to respond the same way. Well, step back and think through, how would you answer that question that would be unique and that would show, you know, to the interviewer that you could think creatively and outside of the box. And here's one more tip that I would give you, to give you some safety net when you're asked a question like that. What you can tell the interviewer is that, well, listen, there's an easy way to solve this, and this is what I would do, and most likely everybody else would follow the same route. But here's something unique that I would like to share with you, an idea. And talk about that creative idea, talk about that out-of-the-box thinking that you have. And that way, you know, you're kind of letting them know that you've got the standard response, but here's something unique that you also have that you can bring to the table. So with that, I hope this was useful. If you get those questions, don't be caught off guard. Bring on your creative side, take risks, be bold, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot.